Welcome to the commentary booth where we watch and you guessed it, commentate on the week that was in movies and TV. I'm your host and play-by-play commentator Jamie Apps, and each week I'm joined by a rotating cast of colour commentators to help you find your next viewing treat. This week I'm joined by an impact fee technician who lists their favourite movie as A Nightmare on Elm Street and favourite TV show as Golden Girls. Welcome to the show, Corrina Mabey.
Hello, what's up? How's it going?
Hello, she says with her
Hello.
mangled hand.
For the record, if you try to plan a Sweet 16 for your kid, don't use a clicky pen, because this is what happens.
No, that only happens if you're Corina.
No, it'll happen
Most
to
people can use a
anybody.
clicky pen without injuring themselves.
This is why I shouldn't be allowed to have clicky pens, but they're the best pens. I mean, we should take a
I feel
poll
like
on that, but
I feel like you should only ever have access to crayons at this point.
crayons,
But
markers. Markers are
then
a
you
pretty
might
good
try,
thing.
then you
Like,
might try and eat. No, because you'll choke on the lid.
no, like Crayola markers, they have retractable markers. So instead of having a clicky pen, I could just have a clicky marker, and I feel like that would be a little bit more tapered, so I wouldn't stab myself next to the whatever.
Let's just give you a non-toxic crayon. Just so if you eat it, then we're fine.
I'm not gonna eat any crayon. I never did that as a kid either. Like, I never understood that. I know we're getting off track already, but like, who the fuck eats crayons? Like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
not
gonna
gonna
eat
eat any
some
of that.
wax. Like you might as well go and eat a fucking candle.
Yeah, I feel like that would have been better because it probably would have tasted better. Like, crayons don't have like a flavor, but at least candles are scented. So like, if you have like a cinnamon bun candle, you're more tempted to probably eat that. But whatever. Anyway, point of the story, don't use a clicky pen if you're trying to plan a party. And mind you, I only had one beer tonight. So like that's even worse. Like,
Yep, it says something.
yeah.
But this week we're exploring the 7 deadly sins as we revisit and review the now 30-year-old movie Seven, starring Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, Kevin Spacey, and Gwyneth Paltrow. Uh, Released on November 2nd, 1995. This film celebrates its 30th anniversary this year, so you're welcome. You are now officially old if you remember watching this movie when it first came out.
Yes. Can I petition to relabel these episodes as the flashback film series? Like, I like it. It sounds good. It sounds fun. And I feel like we should do that since we do these more often now because it was my idea to do them.
They're already labeled. They already have a separate label.
What's their no, I don't like your separate label. I think flashback films are better.
They're frightening flashbacks.
No, because not all of them are scary.
The vast majority of them are.
That's just because you let me pick the vast majority of them. But coming soon to an episode near you, it's not going to all be scary. Some of them are stupid.
Yeah, then we got the funny flashbacks.
Whatever. Anyway, yeah, continue with Seven because I love this movie and I'm glad we got to do it. And I do feel fucking old that this movie is 30 years old.
Mm-hmm. So this one is directed by David Fincher, who has directed a bunch of movies that I love. Obviously, Fight Club, the ultimate man movie. The Killer, recently on Netflix, was also great. Gone Girl, The Game, Zodiac, Panic Room, The Social Network, which is probably the most like off kilter of all of them. Like
Yeah.
doesn't really fit the rest.
Yeah, they all have a
But
theme except that one.
yeah, that one kind of is like, oh, we're out here. But yeah, I guess it's kind of got like a sinister undertone now when you look at Facebook and social media and stuff. But at the
Not
time, it was
serial
kind of just,
killer.
yeah, at the time it was just like, oh, we're doing a random biopic. Okay.
Yeah. Way to
go. But this crime thriller is set in an unnamed, crime-ridden city and follows two detectives, a rookie and a veteran, as they hunt down a serial killer who uses the 7 deadly sins as his modus operandi or muse. The detectives are played by Brad Pitt as David Williams, the well-meaning but impulsive rookie homicide detective. Morgan Freeman as William Somerset, the veteran detective who is kind of disillusioned with his job and about to retire. And then on the flip side, we have Kevin Spacey as John Doe, the serial killer inspired by the 7 deadly sins, who wasn't actually the first choice for this role. The original first choice was Ned Beatty from Deliverance, All the President's Men, and Shooter.
Mm-hmm.
He was originally slated to play the role because of his resemblance to the sketch of the Zodiac Killer.
Mm.
He declined because he described the script as the most evil thing I've ever read.
Oh, wow, that's comforting.
And then Gwyneth Paltrow plays Tracy Mills, Brad Pitt's lonesome wife in this movie. Uh,
Yeah, mouse lady. That's what I call her because she looks like a mouse.
I guess. But this one has a 2 hour and 6 minute runtime. Uh, it's an incredible movie. It is like, I think at the time it was kind of somewhat critically, I think it was critically praised, but kind of panned a little bit as well by. Well, no, the box office was great. I think it might have been critically panned.
Mm.
They were like, "Oh, this is too full on," because it's kind of bleak at the end. There is
Yeah, for
no real happy ending of, "Oh, they solved the crime, yay."
Yeah, for 30 years ago, this was one of those movies that was kind of more gritty and kind of broke the mold a little bit because there was not other movies that were like this full on and stuff like that. Like nowadays it's not considered to be anything crazy because I mean we have Saw and we have all these other crazy movies that about serial killers and stuff like that and you have series that are the same way. But for 30 years ago this was definitely out of the box kind of film. So it's fun to see that I feel like it's aged well, minus Kevin Spacey, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, but
Um,
he is playing kind of a messed up human being in this, so
it's not a flattering role for him, and as it should not be. So, but yeah, no, I love this movie. It's one of my favorite Brad Pitt movies. I'm not like a huge Brad Pitt fan, but I do have my like couple reserved films for him, and this is one of those three. And I say three because that's literally them.
yeah. So I was looking at it. It garnered middling test audience results. Was not predicted to perform well because it was so sort of boundary pushing on the violence and mature nature and content. Uh,
Yeah.
at the time, it cost them between 33 and 34 million dollars. Was New Line Cinema's most expensive movie ever at that point in time.
Oh shit,
Uh,
that's interesting.
went on to make $327.3 million. So pretty
Okay.
good investment there. 100
Yeah.
times the return.
Yeah, I'd say
How
so.
often do you get 100x return on a movie?
Yeah, like that's kind of bonkers. But I feel like I mean, it's really good. It's really worth it. Like I'm glad that they made the investment and took a chance on it. And also it's New Line Cinema, right? Like you just said that. I had a
Mhm.
moment for a second, sorry. So like they're kind of known for like more edgy taking risk films, I think. And I feel like most of the time it pays off for them. I feel like they were like the 90s version of a Blumhouse or A24. Um, and they've only just gotten better with time. So I'm really glad that it's still hanging around.
Mhm. And yeah, like we mentioned, it follows this serial killer who, like, all of his kills are inspired by the various seven deadly sins. We
Yeah,
begin with the gluttony murder scene,
right.
pretty intense.
Yep. All of the murder sequences in this movie, when you get to them, are pretty intense. Um, there's no
There are
problem with
two that there are
are pretty
two
rough.
in particular that really like are full on.
Yes, yes, yes.
So like gluttony is, yeah, pretty gross. Like he just kept feeding this guy until his stomach exploded, which is pretty
But
wow. Like
yeah,
that's a Saw type kill. But
yeah.
um, then we went into greed, which was just pretty standard. Like makes this guy just cut his own flesh off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then we get into the two that were like really intense. One of them they spent a lot of time on. One of them they kind of quickly moved past.
Yeah.
So the first one that we see is Sloth, and they walk into this house that's just got thousands of air fresheners hung up to conceal the smell and the murder scene. We later find out that the victim is alive
Yep.
and was so hungry that he chewed off his own tongue and ate it,
Yeah.
which is wow. I no, I think I
Yeah,
would prefer to just die.
as gross as it is, sloth is probably my favorite like murder slash non-murder sequence in this movie, just because of how intense it is. And with the set that they built for this, with all of the hanging like little tree air fresheners, is so incredibly like real. Like, because they sell those all over the place, this little tree fresheners in every auto shop and store. So watching this movie, you can imagine, like, I don't know, I'm one of those people that likes to like associate things with other stuff. So when I saw that for the first time, I was like, oh, I could smell those trees, like walking through a house, just like the ungodly, overpowering scent of air fresheners, like fake pine and stuff like that, has got to be like so grody. Um, and just so insane. And then yeah, to find the victim that you think is dead, and then you like you bend into him and the guy just gets scared shitless because the guy's actually alive. Like, that's
Mhm.
insane.
My one issue with that scene is like we see the detectives and the police walking into that room, into like that apartment,
Yeah.
and none of them kind of react to the smell in there until
Mm-mm.
they see the body, and then they're like, oh, and they like recoil at how bad it smells. I'm like, yeah, but 2 seconds ago you were fine.
Yeah, maybe it
I
just
would
like
have recoiled at the smell of like, yeah, that fake air freshener scent to begin with. I mean, like, oh, that's intense.
yeah, it's a
And
lot.
then you would get there and like get past that and get to the actual smell of the guy and be like, oh.
Yeah, there's like rotten flesh and like just feces. Well, obviously it's rotting flesh with feces because the guy like has been chained up there for what, a year? They said a year he was chained up in there.
Mhm.
So like just imagining like your body just like riddled with bed sores from being strapped to a bed for that long and like just decaying slowly. It's just oh
That was the crazy part too. He was also like, he didn't just strap him there and leave him. He
no.
was coming in, he was feeding him enough to keep him alive without like keeping him full of energy.
Yeah.
And he was giving him antibiotics to prevent the bed sores from getting infected. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
you are a mental case.
Sick.
That's like
Yeah.
the one kill where you're like, okay, this guy's really messed up. This
Absolutely.
isn't just
It's
like
insane.
a one night ordeal. Like this is even gluttony is like over a long period, but this is a year worth of
Yeah.
torturing this person.
Yeah, it was insane. I just yeah, it was a lot to take in. I think that was a lot to take in.
And then the next one is Lust, and they kind of move past this one pretty quick because if you pay attention and see the murder weapon, it is a uh,
It's a lot.
bladed strap-on that
Mhm.
he forced the people to have sex with the prostitute. It's like, oh,
Yeah, it was a very intense, and I think that's probably why this movie is just so it's lasted for so long, is because it did, like I said, it broke the mold. Nobody's doing that in the 90s. Like, no one's even thinking that in the 90s. Like, where would you even come up with that kind of idea? Like, to murder somebody with a fucking bladed strap on and then like just like have them go at it. Like, it's insane to think of how far in advance it is, because again, this is like, I feel like this was kind of like a a footprint for Saw. Like some of the murder sequences in Jigsaw, like they weren't like, none of them got that intense, but again, it was just like a stepping stone of like, hey, this is what we made. What can you do?
yeah, these like elaborate sort of game slash trap type things. So like, it's
Yeah,
definitely like an inspiration, I think.
yeah. And I remember like I was watching this and then I remember like pointing it out to you. Like all these characters, like everybody that's in this movie is pretty well known. And then I pointed out the random guy that ended up having to perform this act on the prostitute. And I was like, oh, that's the guy from Alien Resurrection. That's like the crazy guy that like had an alien in his chest for half the movie. And I was like, I don't even know why I know that, but he played the role
Of
perfectly of like
of
someone
course you
freaked
know
out.
that.
I was like, man, I didn't think that guy did anything else, but no, clearly I was wrong. He did something else. So,
Mhm. And then the final sort of three go by real quickly. It's Pride, Envy, which ends up being John Doe is the he's the one that like makes he becomes the victim on Wrath.
Mm-hmm.
Makes one of the other Mills like the um killer
Yeah.
in Envy.
Are you a trading card collector or a fan of Australian pro wrestling? If so, you're not going to want to miss out on the limited edition Australian wrestling cards. Each set includes 50 packs of 10 cards, including some of the country's top wrestling talents like Robbie Eagles, Shane Haste, Madison Eagles, Hartley Jackson, and they have Shaza McKenzie listed, although she is not a favorite. The velocities, and a lot more. There's wrestlers, referees, announcers, commentators that are featured, giving you a full appreciation of the Australian independent scene. The cards sold out a lot faster because cards are hot right now, as I'm sure Jeremy Lambert will tell you. But you can order your Australian wrestling cards now at Pario Magazine. That's PARIO magazine.com.au/AUS WRES cards. Follow Australian Wrestling Cards on social media at AusResCards for updates. Join the hundreds of fans who have already discovered the excitement of Australian wrestling cards.
Sort of going all the way back, like the title sequence, if you pay like close attention, is all about John Doe's preparations and how he sets up for these elaborate murders,
Yes.
even going so far as to cut all his fingertips off so that he has no fingerprints, processing photos in the bathtub, and then he just makes a cup of tea.
Yeah. Some Dexter
So
shit too.
that was my note. This is
Yeah.
absolutely inspiration for the title sequence of Dexter.
Yeah.
Just like
100%.
average Joe Blow, apart from cutting your fingertips off, like
Oof.
just making some photos, having a cup of tea. It's just like, yeah, just an everyday dude, just going about his daily routine. And it just so happens to be one of the most messed up people in the world.
Yeah, it's absolutely bonkers. Again, like the thought process to like how to make an opening credit sequence like that intricate, and like you have to like kind of go back and like look at it afterwards and be like, oh, I see what they were talking about. Yep, there he is doing this, doing that, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, that's definitely an intro sequence where you get more from it by watching the movie a second time around. The
Mm-hmm.
first time you just see it and you go, oh, it's just like a montage of different
Right.
routine things. But then you
Sure.
go back and watch it like, okay, there's a lot more in this than initially picked up.
Yep. Absolutely.
And we also get like, it's got like massive religious undertones as well, with the seven deadly sins being the
Mm-hmm.
inspiration, and just like all of like John Doe's quotes and stuff. It's like, yeah, this is like, yeah, religiously motivated serial killing is always kind of disturbing.
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting to see how movies like this utilize religious aspects for murders and killing and stuff like that. And how many movies have gone on from that and use the same kind of aspect or like, put and most of the time when you think of like a religious film, they're just like, oh yeah, it's a happy-go-lucky religious film. But these ones are more like daunting and like, oh yeah, the evil side of how people interpret the Bible and shit like that. So it's really interesting to see how that happened and how he took those and really put them in life. Of
I would imagine this is also maybe an inspiration for like Long Legs as well, like with that religious
course.
undertone to the murders as well.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like this movie probably sparked a lot of like the more uh sinister undertones for religious based movies. Like, they keep coming out like left and right, and I just like look back to movies that were in the 90s and the early 2000s, like Devil's Advocate, Ninth Gate, Bless the Child, things like that. Like all of those circulated around like different religious aspects and stuff like that. They were all dark, super dark movies, not necessarily like serial killer or anything like that, but I feel like they just looked at the darker side of things.
Yeah, because you go back further and go to like Silence of the Lambs and those sort of movies, they don't really have that religious undertone. It is just a totally messed up human being doing messed up things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Also, as the killing goes on in this movie, it like the momentum really ramps up towards the end. Like it's quite a while before we go from gluttony until we get to the greed killer, and then it's probably a little bit even longer before we get to Sloth. And then like those last like 4 just go bam, bam, bam.
Bam, bam, bam.
Especially
Yeah.
the last 3 are all like revealed in the last like 10 minutes.
Yeah, rapid fire, like absolutely nuts how they did it.
Which I think works like because it is like over 2 hours. Like it's a pretty lengthy movie when you think about the subject matter and stuff like that. So
It is.
I think like having that speed up, like it stops you thinking as you're watching, you're like, oh god, I'm just going for a long time. Because
Yeah.
it's building the momentum, you feel like it's moving quickly.
Yeah, I don't. When you said it got like a 2 hour runtime, I did not think that it was actually that long. And I've watched this movie a million times over, and I've never actually thought to see how long the runtime was on it, just because it has such a good pacing. Like there are parts of it where it is slower, but it's warranted. Like there are those moments where it does need to be slow, so you can build characters and you can understand them a little bit better, especially with the last and final sin, and how we get to that moment. So you kind of need those slow moments to introduce things. And then it just picks up where it needs to. And I appreciate that because, yeah, like I said, I didn't even realize I was watching it for 2 hours. It's just one of those things that just keeps going and I like it.
Yep. And those slow moments, they work really well to give you insight into the 2 detectives and like how different they are. Like we have
Mm-hmm.
Somerset, who is this highly educated single man. As he's like researching the case, he's going to the library and he's reading the actual books and everything to like try and understand the mind of this killer.
Yep.
Whereas then you have Mills on the flip side, who is married, always seems to have no time, and for him to get into the mind of the killer, he's reading the Cliff Notes or the For Dummies version of these books.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I love that. And also, I love the fact that you can really tell how dated this movie is because in the 90s, obviously like computers and the internet were like still like fairly new going on and things like that. Whereas nowadays we would just like take a scan like from offline. We didn't even have to scan anything. We just go on Google and like search things and then just send it in a PDF and an email. But no, like Somerset has to go into the library. He has to make photocopies of pages of the books. He leaves it in a file on the guy's desk. So it's just very fun to see how much things have changed and how dependent we are on technology now versus when they had to do like actual footwork back then. Like
Especially like these books that they're reading and interpreting to then get insight into the killer. They would all be public domain books these days. So you could just download the actual book and
Yeah.
read it online.
Mhm.
You don't have to physically go and get the book. You can just Google it and it's all there.
Yeah,
We
100%.
also see them at the police station. They are typing on typewriters. They don't
Yes.
have computers. I
Nope.
was like, oh, that really pins it to that early 90s time period.
Yeah, where they're like transitioning to newer equipment, but like Morgan Freeman's character is still set in his like ways of being like very old school. Like, no, it's got to be done by this, and no, none of that other shit.
Yeah. But yeah, none of like I don't think for all of the scenes we see in the police station, I don't think there's one computer in there.
No, I
Pretty
don't
sure
believe
they're all
so.
just on typewriters and hard copies.
Yeah.
Because I
Yep.
imagine they were probably one of the last places to like transition because they do want those hard copies for evidence and
Yeah.
it can't be really tampered with that way.
Yep.
And as I said, there is a very sort of bleak conclusion to this one where, unlike your typical like detective movie where, oh, they're cool, they solve the case.
Yeah.
No,
There's some thinking.
they catch the guy,
Mm-hmm.
but it still has this really bleak outcome where Gwyneth Paltrow, the wife, becomes John Doe's last victim, where we get the iconic line, "What's in the box?"
Yeah.
And then we kind of find out that her head is in said box, but we don't really get an explanation for why he went on this murderous spree.
No. Just to educate people. I think that's what he said. He wants to like educate and cleanse the world or something like that. It is a very rough thing. Yeah, there's no happily ever after in this movie. Like, definitely the furthest thing from that. So if you're looking for a really good wrapped up conclusion, this is not it.
I believe that ending was supposed to be slightly different too.
Mm.
So like they the studio wanted a more heroic ending
Mm-hmm.
for Mills, where he didn't kill the guy.
Yeah.
So instead of it being Tracy's head in the box, they wanted it to be the head of one of his dogs, which we see
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
in the moments at his house.
That would make sense.
Yeah, so they just wanted this more mainstream one where they pursue Doe, who kidnaps Tracy,
Mm-hmm.
but then she's rescued, and then in the box is just one of the dogs. So it's like I can see that, but I don't think it would have had as anywhere near as an impact as a movie if they had gone that route.
No, PETA would have been up in arms though.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I don't think, I mean, granted, like, I can't stand movies where the dogs die. Like, I hate I Am Legend. Like, I was just talking about that the other day with my mom. Like, that movie pisses me off so hard. It's a good movie, and then that happens, and I'm like, all right, this is a shit fucking movie.
Mhm.
So I hate movies where dogs die, and I feel like this would have been one of those movies that gets ruined for me had that been the ending.
And yeah, it just wouldn't have had the impact of
Mm-mm.
s- d- because it's such a bleak tale.
Yeah.
If it just had this heroic ending, it would have just become like any other detective film. Where you're like, oh, okay, of course they solved the case.
Yeah. Like, whoopee. Yeah, this is definitely a more iconic ending, I think. I think this is one of the endings that made this movie be so uh memorable, if you want to say, and why it keeps going for so long with the following that it has, because it does do that kind of like really gritty, like fucked up kind of ending, and you see people just break, and you can put yourself in their shoes almost, and what would you do if your fucking wife's head ended up in a fucking box from a serial killer?
Yeah, it's definitely a much more real, believable ending.
Yeah.
And I think if they had, I think the studio wanted that more heroic ending because they had proposed in 2002. They proposed a sequel called Eight.
Ugh. No, thank you.
Yep, they wanted a
No.
sequel. They wanted to call it Eight, which would have been spelt EI number 8 HT.
Mm-mm.
It would have been based on a repurposed script titled Solace by Ted Griffin. The sequel would have focused on a psychic serial killer pursued by Somerset, who would have developed similar psychic abilities. I'm like, what the fuck? Where did that come from? He was
I'm
just
pretty
smart. He wasn't a psychic.
I feel like they used something like that before in another movie with Anthony Hopkins. Um, I'm getting sidetracked, but yeah, I feel like that was another movie that was out there where there is like a psychic detective of some sort.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I don't like it.
Yeah, but the idea was ultimately abandoned after the cast and crew, including Freeman, Pitt, and Fincher, said, "Nope, we don't want to do that. Like, let's just leave it.
Yeah, some things
It's
are better left untouched.
fantastic. Leave it alone." And yeah,
Yeah.
Fincher said, "I would be less interested in that than I would have having cigarette butts put into my eyeballs."
Oh shit.
So
It's
it's like, oh, he definitely don't want to do it.
it's kind of like when they did Silence of the Lambs, it was iconic, it was fantastic. And then they did Hannibal, and I loved Hannibal because obviously it's Hannibal. And then they did Red Dragon, which I
Red
was also
Dragon,
fine with.
which was
It was okay. I like Ray Fiennes, so I'm kind of biased. But Hannibal Rising was completely unnecessary and totally trash. I didn't need it. So I feel like that's where we would have led to eventually with seven. Because I mean, if they're gonna make an eight, then why wouldn't they make fucking nine at that point? It wouldn't be necessary, and I feel like it would just create additional spin-offs that aren't as good and probably tarnish the whole reputation of the film itself. Because I love
Mhm.
it. But as much as I like Saw as well, I feel like the Saw films, after a while, once you've seen one, you've seen them all. And I feel like it just loses its I don't know, like vibe and
Yeah.
impact.
Saw, I'm not going in for the story anymore.
No. And
I'm going
that's
in to see
bad.
the crazy fucked up traps.
Yeah, because with the first couple Saw movies, like I enjoyed the storyline with Jigsaw and stuff like that, but then it just got so elaborate and so out of there to the point where when I watch the Saw movies now, I can't remember what ones I've
I
seen,
don't
what
know
ones
what's
I
going on.
haven't. Yeah,
I don't know
and
what's happening.
I get them all mixed up. I'm like, wait, was it three or was it four that this person was in and that person was in? Like, I just get them all mixed up in my head at this point. So
Yeah. And then they
it's
have
kind of
those
bad.
oh, look, this guy's back moments. And I'm like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, so I feel like this could have really gone bad and gone down that route probably, especially if they were trying to do like a money grab just because of the popularity and the cult following with this original movie.
Yep. And one of my last notes was, it is always pouring rain in this city.
Yes.
I think that's like to play on the whole like detective noir, like the 70s, 80s aesthetic.
Yes.
It also gave me big Batman vibes, big
Mm-hmm.
Batman-esque motifs
Yeah.
here with like this cold, dark, wet city. And I
Yeah.
imagine that inspired the Batman,
Yeah.
Matt
Like
Reeves.
Batman background, like typical like New York or like Chicago, like something really like just gross and desolate kind of moments.
Yeah, there's like so much of this where you can go, okay, this inspired this movie. This
Mm-hmm.
inspired Dexter. This ultimately inspired Matt Reeves and Longlegs. You're like, yeah, this is
Mm-hmm.
such an iconic movie because of what it did to creators 20 years later.
Yeah, and that's fantastic that it was able to do that for the movie industry because this is one of those movies, like I said, that's just it's iconic and it was great for its time and it really did set the footprint for people to look back at and be like, oh, well, if they did that in the 90s, then I can definitely do that now. I mean, the technology's come so far and I can amplify it and things like that. And I love Morgan Freeman. I always said that if anybody's going to narrate my life, it's going to be Morgan Freeman. Not that he's going to, but I would love that no matter what. And yeah, Brad Pitt, I mean, he's super young in this movie and it's my top 3 Brad Pitt movies of all time. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely one of his best performances.
Yeah. But yeah, and like I said, Kevin Spacey, I mean, he's whatever, but he played the role of a psychopath pretty damn well. So there's that.
Another note I had for the ending. So when they did the test screenings, which were kind of a bit like middling on the outcomes, David Fincher had some very specific instructions to when the movie ended and cut to black, that they had to keep the lights off. They weren't supposed to turn the lights back on in the cinema.
Mm,
So that his idea was that the audience could just sit there for a couple of seconds and really take in what they'd just witnessed.
sure.
Unfortunately, those instructions were not followed.
Oh,
They movie ended, they turned the lights on, like I guess like they always do. The lights come on so people can leave.
sure.
So that probably played into the middling scores. But after the screenings, one female audience member is quoted to have said, "The people who made that movie should be killed
Oh, okay.
because of
Well,
how bleak and disturbing it was."
that's pretty rough. I mean, it's no exorcist, but I mean, I get it. It's disturbing, but like, come on. It's not that bad.
And also on the invitation to the test screenings, uh, the screening invitation only told audiences that the film would feature Pitt and Freeman. They weren't told what the movie was about, what
Oh,
it was called, anything like that. They're like, come and see the next Brad Pitt Morgan Freeman movie, because they
oh,
didn't want people to come in and be like, or see it and be like, I don't want to go see that. They just wanted them to go in and see a movie that had those two in it
of
and then
course.
be totally blown away because it's totally different to what they had been doing in the years prior.
Yeah, that's a far cry from some of their shit. Holy crap. I can't imagine like being like, "Oh yeah, we're going to go see this cool movie," and then thinking it's like a heartfelt movie or just like a more of like a serious movie or
Typical
something like
action
that.
movie.
Yeah, anything like that and then it ends up being the serial killer that focuses on the 7 deadly sins. Like, ooh, okay.
It's like the Terrifier 3 invitation.
Yeah.
Come and see a
Yeah.
Christmas movie. And people walked in like, what the? This is not a Christmas movie.
Yeah. I feel like more production companies should do that though. Like if they had released a companion on Valentine's Day, they could have done it as like a heartfelt couples movie. Um Things like that.
Or they could have just not announced that they were going to put that on streaming the week after Valentine's Day.
Or that. But like My
Because
Bloody Valentine.
how many people are going to go see that this weekend
Right.
for Valentine's, knowing that if we just wait, we can watch it in 3 or 4 days at home?
Yeah, like what's the other one that's oh, Heart Eyes. That's the next one that's coming out. That's like they could have easily like marketed that as like a very romantic weekend movie. Let's go see it with our favorite couple and like yeah, it's definitely
Well,
not
yeah,
going to be that.
that is how they marketed Companion.
Yeah, but they just fucked
As
up on the
look, it's
release of
this
that.
like it's by the people that made the Notebook, and you're like, oh, okay, it's gonna be like this real romantic movie, and then you go and see, it, you're like, that's no,
No.
it's a crazy movie about AI and robots that murder each other.
I mean, it's whatever. It's still a love story.
Um, yeah, so I really enjoyed Seven. The last thing I noted down was, like I mentioned, the box office, $327.3 million, made it the seventh highest grossing movie of the year. Can you guess the 6 movies above it?
This came out in 95, right?
Mhm.
Fuck, what else came out? One moment, please. I'm going to research because there are other movies that came out in 95. I'm not looking up top movies in 95. I just want to see what else came out around 95 because I don't know. Are you going to give me any hints?
One of them wasn't a Christmas movie.
What? What?
One of them was not a Christmas movie.
Die Hard didn't come out in the 90s or 95.
Maybe a
What?
sequel did.
Oh my gosh, that doesn't count.
Die Hard with a Vengeance was the top earning movie of 1995 with
Okay, and
$366 million.
hold on, wait a second. Wait, that's you want to know why that movie did so well? Why it was the top tiered movie of 95? I'll tell you why. Because Samuel L. Jackson was in it, and any movie with Sammy J in it is going to be a top tiered movie of the year.
And Bruce Willis. And it was coming off probably one of the biggest movies of the 80s.
Yeah, whatever. No, all right. I'm not going to do that research because that's too fucking much work for me after I worked all day. So just okay. So we got Die Hard with a Vengeance. What else is up there that I might guess?
Toy Story came in at number 2 with $363 million.
Gotcha, Pixar. All right.
Apollo 13 came in at number 3 with $355 million.
Hmm.
GoldenEye came in at number 4 with $352 million. Of course, a James Bond movie is right up there.
Yeah, that's good.
Then we got a Disney movie, Pocahontas, with $346 million.
Pocahontas beat out Seven. Oh my gosh. Oof. All right. I mean, it's one of my favorite princess movies. But...
And then we got Batman Forever, starring Val Kilmer, Tommy Lee Jones, and Jim Carrey.
That's
$327 million.
That's one of the worst Batman movies ever.
Yeah. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then yeah, after that was
Seven.
Was 7, and then we had Casper with $287.9 million.
Casper should have beat out fucking Batman, but whatever. I'm biased.
Number 9, your new favorite movie.
Don't say the stupid movie you made me watch.
What? It's not Ready to Rumble.
Oh, okay. What's my other favorite fucking movie?
What other movie did you recently rewatch?
Waterworld?
$246 million.
That movie is god awful. Absolutely god awful. I spent 2 hours of my life on a Sunday trying to watch that because, fun fact, I had never seen it before, and I could have lived my whole life never seeing it because it was fucking awful.
Don't worry, Karina's going to rewatch it again in a few months. And
no, I'm not. I don't need to ever rewatch it. It's integrated in my mind. Fucking.
We're going to come back and review it properly when it hits its 30-year anniversary later this year.
We really don't need to. We really don't need to. No one needs to see Kevin Costner with gills behind his ears and fucking Dennis Hopper with a half burnt face. It's just not necessary.
And then, so yeah, the final one, the number 10 earning movie of 1995.
Mm-hmm.
Jumanji, $262 million.
That should have placed higher.
Yeah, that is
fantastic. I love
that. Is very low. I would have put that above Pocahontas and GoldenEye.
Not above GoldenEye.
I loved the Jumanji movie.
Yeah, Jumanji's fantastic. Like the original OG Jumanji, like that made me want to buy the Jumanji game, which I've also never owned, by the way. I've actually never played Jumanji either. Like,
This guy did.
yeah, I wish I had because I never actually got to get the box game like I always wanted, and I've never played it, so I don't even know the concept of the stupid game, and I'm so mad at myself that I'm
Well,
a
yeah, it's
90s baby and I've
basically
never done it.
they just made the board from the game, from the
Yeah.
movie.
Mm-hmm.
But you know how in the center it has in the movie it has the like glass dome thing that
The
like
8
the
ball. Like I
mysterious.
always call it the magic 8 ball middle.
Yeah. Well, this one had like this plastic film thing, and you would get cards that were like they had this like scramble thing on them that
Okay.
you couldn't read unless you slid it into this thing, and then the
Oh,
like
it
lens
deciphered
over
it.
the top of it so you
Oh,
could
that's
read it,
cool.
which was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm kind of mad that I missed out on Jumanji now. Fuck. I'm like, I feel like a part of my childhood has been stolen from me.
But yeah, so all 10 of those movies, 30
Yeah.
years old this year.
Yeah, we're pretty fucking old. It's cool. It's whatever.
See, if the Batman Part 2 was coming out this year, we could have gone back and rewatched Batman Forever.
It's fine because the Batman Part 2 is not going to come out next year either. It's going to get pushed back again. Just to spite you because the first one was fucking awful.
Don't you put that terrible energy
That's your
into the
shit.
universe, or I will
Why
have to hurt you.
not? Like, they should have just left fucking Batman alone, okay? Leave Michael Keaton's Batman was probably the best Batman. So he can just stay there. Like, no one needs the fucking vampire Batman. No one needed George Clooney as Batman. Val Kilmer was a stretch for me. Like,
George Clooney wasn't terrible.
he had the nipple suit.
He was better than Affleck.
I
Affleck sucked.
kind of forgot about Ben Affleck being Batman because I kind of blank him out in my head.
Yeah.
Oh, and also
Affleck-
Christian Bale.
Christian Bale was very good.
He was a
Affleck
very good Batman.
Sucked.
Yeah, yeah.
The Pat Bat is good.
No, Pat Bat is fucking awful. Like, absolutely awful. He's so... Never mind. We're not going to get into it because I'll get on a tangent about why Batman is not the best thing in the world like Jamie thinks it is.
You'd be nice to Battinson.
No, absolutely. I'm never going to call him that either. Jesus Christ. Oh, your fanboy is showing. Next thing you know, you're going to start sparkling like Edward from Twilight. Oh, I'm so obsessed with Batman. Oh, what's this? Sparkles.
I've never watched Twilight, so I couldn't tell you what you're even referencing.
Oh, if you want to watch a stupid movie, we'll watch a stupid movie. When's the anniversary of that one? Let's go.
I don't know. Find out. Google it while I...
No, I'm good. I'm good. I never need to watch that again in my life.
So in terms of a rating, what would you give 7?
Oh, 7's going to get a 5 for me, always and forever. If it's a movie that I can go back to all the time, countless times, it's going to get a 5 for me because I don't waste my time rewatching movies unless they actually have like an impact in my life somehow.
Yeah, I gave it a 5 as well because it's like we said, it's inspired so many things, and just it's such a great movie and groundbreaking movie for the time.
Yep. Can't argue with that.
Twilight will be 20 in 3 years.
Good. So we don't have to worry about it. We're going to forget about Twilight by the time that happens, and no one again needs it. However, I'm going to push you to do an extra episode of this so we can cover that one movie that I told you about. I want to cover The Cell. I want to do an episode on The Cell because you've never seen it, and I think if you like 7, you'll like that. And I'm going to try and figure out a way we can squeeze it in.
I just remembered what that movie... No, it looked terrible.
Yes. No, oh my God. You need to put up a poll. When this comes out, you need to put up a poll on Instagram to see if people want you to watch The Cell, because I swear to God, I will die on this hill that if you like 7, you will like The Cell. Swear.
I don't know. It looked...
That
trailer did not look good.
The trailer might look like shit, but the movie was really good. And I want to do a bonus episode on it. And if I get my way, motherfucker, I will do it. I will find I will find something to cancel. We can cancel Ready to Rumble. That's not necessary. We don't have to do that one. We can cancel Waterworld. Waterworld is a great show that we could cancel and replace it. So I don't have to do this in that movie. You're lame. Anyway, people, this has been fun. This has been another flashback episode. I just took over the ending of this. Sorry for that. I stole your thunder. Have fun. Continue.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to the commentary booth. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on podcast services and on YouTube. You can follow me on social media at Jamie Apps Media and at Pario Magazine, and you can follow Corrina on Instagram at Miss Corrina Renee. The Commentary Booth is a fan-funded production of Jamie Apps Media. You can support the podcast alongside our magazine, Pario Magazine, on Patreon at patreon.com/Jamie Apps Media. The following people supported at the publisher level or higher, and you cannot fathom how incredibly appreciative we are for their support.